When you think about lost media, you probably think of the topics that could potentially be found, or at least the ones that have a high chance of showing up someday. But have you ever considered the topics that are likely to never be found or resurface in any way, because the companies and people that have them will never let them go? Well, today's video is going to discuss those topics, the lost media that will never be released. And starting off the video is none other than SpongeBob. When I was growing up in the early 2000s, there always seemed to be this interest on the playground with adult versions of kids' shows. No, it's not that rumored Adult Swim version of SpongeBob that some kids claim existed, but rather, it takes us to the episode Sailor Mouth, where the joke of the episode is the fact that the characters all swear, but the swearing is replaced by a dolphin sound effect. This makes the episode funny, and you might be wondering, what exactly is it that they beeped out in the episode? Well, Tom Kenny has confirmed that it was in fact real swear words that were being uttered by these characters and censored in the cartoon.
You know, swearing without really swearing is hard, because they would just say ad-lib almost swearing. You know, SpongeBob and Patrick ad-lib fake swearing. And then we were like, this is too hard, could we just really cuss, and then you guys just bleep out later? Listening to Patrick and Squidward and Mr. Krabs really drop those bombs. Maybe the funniest thing in the world, and also something you will never be allowed to hear, ever.
Unsurprisingly, this is something that hasn't been released or leaked at all, and as Tom Kenny states later in the panel, Nickelodeon probably has it buried at the center of the earth. There would be no reason to ever release this audio, especially since, again, the joke of the episode was to beat the swears anyway. Even without this, the SpongeBob voice actors have been clipped swearing in different places and projects before, so we can get an idea of what the uncensored Sailor Mouth audio sounds like without actually hearing it. Even so, the topic is still something that gets brought up and discussed at conventions, as seen in a panel as recently as 2021.
So, of course, Roger, this begs the question that I've been wondering about for years.
Where's the tape?
Where's the tape?
See, they record everything, and then they record the actual words that we're saying. So somewhere in Nickelodeon, there's this tape. And ever so often...
What do you guys find it for me? I want a copy.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone needs to leak that tape then.
Yeah.
We all need to hear.
Rick and Morty is a show that I know nothing about other than the fact that I could have become a first-generation fan of the show. I remember back in high school, one of my friends showed me the pilot episode online, but I wasn't really into adult animation, so it never interested me. However, I do know the series has been going on for years, and there's one somewhat infamous piece of lost media that no one has seen from the series, and likely will never see. It relates to a piece of advertising. After the premiere of Rick and Morty, the creator of the series was asked by Subway to make a series of commercials featuring the characters, with the premise that they were the new Jared, referring to the former Subway spokesperson at the time. There were a total of 4 commercials made, but none of them ended up airing, because before their premiere, Jared was arrested and Subway cut ties with him, which aged those Rick and Morty commercials very poorly, so it was decided to never air them on TV. Information about these is pretty hard to come across, as there isn't a lot of discussion online about them. One of the only sources that documented these commercials was from series creator Justin himself, where he mentions he's the only person who has them, and he's not allowed to release them due to legal threats from Subway. However, he did mention that he put the commercials on 8 different flash drives and scattered them in random places. He claims that sometimes he checks the locations where he placed them to see if they're still there or have been taken. Apparently, 4 of the 8 have been taken from their locations, but there's really no way to tell if they had actually been taken or just discarded, and not necessarily picked up by someone. It's also not clear where he scattered them, and their location has never been stated, even the ones that aren't in their original spots. It's also not really clear where this information came from, if it came from one source or has been passed around online. The Lost Media Wiki article about this topic links an interview with Justin, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to verify it before the video became private. Justin himself has been the subject of controversy nowadays, so it's even less likely that he would give any more information about them. Though I would be surprised if any of them were uploaded from people finding those flash drives. There's a really good chance these will never resurface, so there will always be some Rick and Morty lost media. When you think about lost pilots, this is one category of lost media that everyone likes and hopes the lost media will be found. There are still so many old and new topics that have yet to be uncovered, like Meso Blues. But have you ever come across a pilot that is still at its original company and will never be released? And one that even if it did release, would you really want to check it out? I'm sure there would be an interest in it for the controversy that happened during filming, but it's also for that reason why you might not really want to watch it. We'll just have to talk about it because it's something really out of the ordinary. In early 2000, MTV was filming for a new show titled Dude, This Sucks, which was intended to be a bizarre talent show where two teams would compete against each other in acting out strange performances. During these performances, a panel of judges would watch the acts, and if they believed the performance sucks, they slam down their hammer while the audience exclaims, "Dude, this sucks." It kind of reminds me of that old show they brought back a few summers ago called The Gong Show, where contestants would showcase weird skills, and the judges would hit the gong if the act was dumb. But with Dude, This Sucks, things got out of hand at the taping of the original pilot, and that sent the show into immediate cancellation. I should point out that because of the controversy and its immediate cancellation, there is no footage or even pictures of Dude, This Sucks, so we only have archived descriptions and articles to go off of. The story goes that one of the acts that performed during filming were called the Shower Rangers, and acted out a campfire sequence during their first segment. Then in the next segment, they got up, turned around, and aimed their rear ends at three girls who were also on stage with them, and sprayed them with bodily waste. Information states that the Shower Rangers had taken a powerful laxative before the performance, allowing them to perform such an act. But the girls had no idea any of this was going to happen. Apparently, they had only been instructed by studio employees to stand at a certain place on the stage, without any other information. This led to a whole lot of controversy between the girls, who were middle schoolers, their parents, and MTV, two of which sued the network in 2001, with one of the girls stating, "We were having a good time until the second act of Dude, This Sucks went on. All of a sudden, I was smelling something disgusting, and I started to gag. I looked around at my friends, they were covered in something. As I looked down at myself, I realized that I was too." The other girl mentioned that everyone at school became aware of the incident, even the teachers. They would crack jokes and wouldn't go near the girls because they said they smelled, even though they washed everything off. The president of programming at the time vowed that the footage would never be aired or released, and made his own statement about it. This was a terrible incident. It was unintended, and we regret that it happened. I was not aware of the content of this segment prior to the taping and have taken steps to ensure that an incident of this nature never happens again. It's too bad that such an unfortunate incident happened that resulted in the cancellation of a brand new show. And like I said before, there is no content from any part of the pilot online. Considering this was also filmed in the year 2000, it's unlikely anyone has bootleg recordings either. Apparently, it was filmed in a remote location during an MTV weekend festival. Looks like we have even more controversy to talk about, which in some ways goes hand in hand with lost media. When something unexpected happens, it's not uncommon for the companies involved to keep that content hidden, to avoid any more damages, and this topic fits those points really well. Since The Daily Show's premiere in 1996, and according to the Lost Media Wiki, there is only one segment in the history of the show that was never released, and is likely to never be released. For those unfamiliar with the show, of which I am one of those people too, it's a late-night talk show and news satire program that gained a huge reputation after Jon Stewart started hosting in 1998, and focuses on parodies, mockumentary reporting, and other jokes. But it's exactly because of this style where sometimes its content can get a little controversial, which is why one segment in particular was banned from airing. While it's not known exactly when this segment was filmed, its content involved Stephen Colbert visiting the Leisure World retirement community, which had become a historic location and dates back to 1962 when it first opened. In the segment, Colbert talks to the residents about their current effort to have Leisure World incorporated into a town, which has led to the unincorporated communities surrounding them to be worried about being grouped in. Stephen Colbert explained the concept of the segment in more detail at the Paley Center in 2008, mentioning that a lot of parallels were drawn to World War II era situations.
And so we decided that, okay, they're Germany 1936, and the people around them are like the Sudetenlands in Poland, and they're going to be absorbed. And so we talked to the people about, Lebensraum, and we had lots of Wagner playing and, goose step marching under them. This guy named Bert Hack, who was the charismatic leader, who was leading them, for some reason got offended that we compared him to Hitler. And this would really upset him. I had him up on a hill, and the camera was down there, and I said, what can you tell me about that area over there? And he just, as I hoped he would, he just imitated my gesture. He goes, oh, well, that over there, this is...
Apparently, the community leader, who happened to be a retired lawyer, learned that his retirement community had been depicted in such a way, and that the Daily Show crew had not disclosed who they were. He was preparing to sue the network. Eventually, an out-of-court settlement was reached, which led to the result that the segment would never be aired. Since then, none of the segment's content has ever been released, but Colbert implies that it was finished. So unless Comedy Central got rid of all the footage, it's possible they still have it in their archives. Should we talk about a little Nintendo lost media in this video? Yeah, I think so, let's do it. It feels a little bit like cheating though, because you could argue that all of Nintendo's game betas and lost media are likely to never be released, since the company doesn't really go out of their way to share old content, and their archives aren't even that organized, as we've discovered throughout the Slamfest search. But the topic for this video is one that I found particularly interesting for the fact that it sounds like an early concept for Mario Maker. And I really like Mario Maker, so it caught my attention more than other Nintendo game betas. This is Donkey Kong Plus, a game whose title doesn't really sound like a game we're familiar with, but it's actually an early version of Mario vs. Donkey Kong, which was released on the Game Boy Advance in 2005. This earlier iteration existed 3 years before that, in 2002, and its original concept was quite different than the final product we got. Donkey Kong Plus was first revealed at E3 2002 as a tech demo which utilized the connecting cable between the GameCube and Game Boy Advance, with its main gameplay feature being that of level creation, similar to Mario Maker. Players could construct a course with different platform pieces, enemies, and items that can be seen in the final game. The gameplay was split between the two consoles, with the GameCube functioning as the level editor, and the Game Boy Advance being where you played them. Apparently, the levels could even be saved to a GameCube memory card and possibly shared between friends if they had a copy of the game too. Unfortunately, there isn't too much other information about this game, which includes only a handful of screenshots and footage of it running at E3. It's not entirely known why the game ended up being cancelled and reworked into Mario vs. Donkey Kong, but it probably had to do with the connectivity between the GameCube and Game Boy Advance, which was not the most popular gameplay method. You would have needed both consoles, the cable, and a memory card to fully use its features. The abundance of peripherals is also the reason why so many other games from this era were reworked or cancelled, like Stage Debut. However, even though we can't play Donkey Kong Plus as a released game, there actually is a level editor that was left in the code for Mario vs. Donkey Kong that can be accessed by changing a single byte in it. This can't be accessed through normal means though, so it's not something easy to unlock. Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2 on the DS did include a level editor though. That was 4 years later. But if Nintendo is looking for new game modes to add to a Mario Maker 3, this one would get my approval, and would be something everyone can have fun with. Similar to Lost Nintendo games, it seems like Lost Music is another area of exclusive content that companies don't like to release for a variety of different reasons, and I've covered a few different music mysteries on the channel before. One of my more popular videos about Lost Music talked about Panic at the Disco's scrapped Cricket and Clover album. The band admitted they lost most of the tracks that were recorded for it, but I've also heard rumors that they'd need Ryan Ross to sign off on releasing it even if they could find it, and that might not be something he would want to do. However, today let's talk a little bit about Gorillaz' Lost Music, which is a huge rabbit hole in itself. I've been learning more about this kind of content from Kiro and Kelly, who have done extensive research on Gorillaz' lost media, and they've informed me that there's a pretty famous track that fans have been wanting a high-quality recording of, called Aluminium. This is a song that was performed live at the Stop the Dams concert in 2006, held to protest the building of a power plant in Iceland. Damon Albarn, one of the musicians behind Gorillaz, who has lived and recorded in Iceland since 1996, partnered with Ghost Digital to perform the track. Years later, the Aluminium song would eventually be reworked into Stop the Dams off the Gorillaz D-sides, and in more modern times is considered a demo to the final song. However, as for the original Aluminium song, the high-quality version has never been released. A full performance of the track exists and was uploaded to YouTube, but the audio quality is pretty poor, and only the concert holder has the better footage. They posted a short clip with the high-quality audio on their old website, but efforts to get the full video released have been difficult. Contact to the videographer who filmed the event was made, and it was confirmed they still have the content, but they'd need Damon to sign off on it before any of the footage is sorted through. Apparently, Damon is known to leave content unreleased if he doesn't feel it's ready, so it's possible he's not interested in an old live performance of a demo being released, though it's not clear if anyone was able to reach out to him about it in the first place. Similar to that whole idea of kids on the playground wanting to see adult versions of SpongeBob, Mickey Mouse and the kid-friendly Disney content is another area where similar thoughts exist. What if Mickey Mouse wasn't so perfect all the time? In 1964, a student by the name of Robert Swarth took part in the UCLA animation workshop and created a piece of animation called Uncle Walt, which has lived on in rumor and mystery for nearly the entirety of its existence. The piece is a parody of Disney characters doing a lot of non-Disney things, according to a documentation of the short from Wade Sampson on Mouse Planet. The article goes on to describe its content. As the film began, pictures of Walt Disney at various ages were followed by a pan across a graveyard showing the graves of hundreds of Paris, and there were scenes with a very early style Mickey and Minnie Mouse with racial caricatures and outhouse gags, a Fantasia sequence including the female Centaurettes working a red light district with Goofy as a pimp, a scene of frightened little rabbit children looking at scenes from Disney cartoons, like the transformation of the Queen into the old hag in Snow White, and a scene of the Seven Dwarfs gathering to worship Mickey Mouse in a mouse mausoleum reminiscent of a similar scene in Snow White. There was a rumor that claimed the animation was actually done at Disney in 1954, and wasn't intended to be released, but was allowed to be screened as long as it wasn't listed in the official program or advertised. However, this was debunked by Robert himself, when he stated it was a project that began in high school and was his first work before going on to become a professional animator on several different projects. But for as coveted as this animation has become to lost media enthusiasts and Disney fans, it's rarely been seen, and there doesn't seem to be any plans to change that. The only documented public screening of the animation was in June 1972, at the American Film Institute as part of their 50 Years of American Animation presentation, and it's believed to have not been screened anywhere since then, with Swarth himself believing to be the only person in possession of a copy. Though I did find a Reddit thread from only 2 years ago, where a user claims to have gotten in touch with Robert and says he has no intentions to ever release it publicly. This was apparently confirmed after reaching out to a personal friend who had their contact info available on the UCLA website. But even if you have doubts this user actually did all of that, the outcome of never getting a release sounds pretty accurate to me. I don't see a reason why Swarth would decide to release it after all this time, when the interest has been there for the past several years. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to check out some of my other Lost Media videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Finn.